thank you, brothers, for having me and for being here. There's just something that happens when men gather, serious men who are serious about their Catholic faith. Because if you're serious about your Catholic faith, then you're serious about all the important stuff. So I mean it. Thank you from my heart. I was wondering, in Montana. I mean, you guys NFL football fans in Montana? There's got to be some Vikings fans, yeah? That's fine. I did hear that. I did meet someone. They said they were a Steelers fan, so I'm going to talk real slowly. So and if by some circumstance there's a Packers fan here, I'll give you a coloring book. I'm going to talk. But hey, I guess so. I think it's good that I'm starting off the conference because there's going to be a lot of football in this talk. So you don't want to do the heavy mental gymnastics, deep thinking early on. We're going to ramp up to it. Football is not a very complicated game. I know there's all these guys on TV now, and they draw stuff on the telestrator, and they try to make it sound really complicated. But you got to remember in football, there's 11 guys on the field, and the dumbest guy has to know what's going on. Otherwise, the play's not going to work. And I like football because it's really pretty simple. There's a lot going on out there. There's a lot of chaos going on, but it's really pretty simple. And I think it's a great metaphor for life, and I certainly think it's a great metaphor for the Catholic faith. But my story, I want to tell you my story quickly. Tell me if you've heard this before. I was raised Catholic, and then I fell away when I went to college. Not super original, right? But as the bio said, grew up in St. Paul, Minnesota, born to two devout Catholic parents. My dad was actually did a year in the seminary. Lucky for me, he dropped out. And but growing up, we went to Mass every single Sunday. I mean, we never ever once missed Mass. We would be up, we'd be up north camping or something in a town, in the woods. And Sunday morning, we'd drive into town and we'd show up at the church 10 minutes before Mass started. I mean, this was before masstimes.org. Like, my dad knew the Mass schedule of every church everywhere. It was amazing. And when I grew up, I was pretty average, I guess, by worldly standards. Pretty average in every way. But I loved sports. I loved playing sports. And I got to high school. I was actually changed high schools in the 10th grade. I went to a new high school. My buddy said, hey, you know what? You like sports. You played everything. You're not any good at anything. The only sport you haven't tried is football. Why don't you try football? And I said, yeah, what the heck? And when I went out for football, that's where I discovered two of the gifts that God gave me. He gave me the gifts of getting in people's way and grabbing onto them. That might not sound like much, but those are two really important gifts to have if you're an offensive lineman. Not holding onto them, grabbing onto them. Doesn't sound like there's a big difference, but there's 10 yards of difference. Those two things. And kind of for the first time in my life, I was actually just naturally kind of good at something. And I went to a Catholic high school they had great sports teams, and kind of what they're known for, unfortunately, not so much the Catholic faith, but good sports teams. And, I started walking down the halls, and people at school would be like, hey, there's Matt, he's a really good football player. I liked that. I liked being known for something. And I really started to, the more people told me how good I was doing, the more I really leaned into football. And everyone would say, hey, you're doing great. And then by the grace of God, I got accepted to Harvard University to play football. I know you guys probably shocked to learn that Harvard has a football team. We do. We got uniforms and everything. It's real football. And now it's like, oh my gosh, you're playing football, you're going to Harvard, you're doing great stuff. And I started to believe the hype. I really liked that. And so I got to college. Well, I went to college. We didn't have a lot of money growing up, and so my parents, they didn't take me to college. I remember they woke up my two brothers, and Saturday morning Monday morning I was leaving for school, and they drove me to the airport, which was all 5 minutes away from my house, and they just dropped me at the curb and said, good luck. I mean, this is back then, they could have walked me to the gate, there was no security, but they just dropped me at the curb. And I had 2 duffel bags with me, that was everything I owned, and I went off to college, and got there, and coach picked me up, and went over to school, and we started practicing football. Football starts before football starts, before school starts. And practiced all week, and woke up Sunday morning, it was our day off, and I was in a dorm with 7 other guys, and I was waiting for someone to say, hey, let's go to Mass. And nobody said, hey, let's go to Mass. And so for the first time in my life, I skipped. And we all know Catholic guilt is real. But, then practiced football the next week, woke up the next Sunday, and didn't go to Mass again. Second time skip was a lot easier than the first. And, I justified it by saying, yeah, I've done all that, I'm a good person, and, look at, I'm doing really good stuff here, and, really, I mean, we all have a great ability to rationalize sin, to rationalize things we shouldn't do. And so, a couple months, I'm into football and school, and my mom comes out to visit me. And my mom she's from a dairy farm in Minnesota. I doubt she'd ever even heard of Harvard before I went there, so she's just kind of beaming, and I'm taking her a tour of the campus, and I purposely ended the tour in the middle of Harvard Yard, which is, like, it's a pretty nice place. And I said, Mom, there's Widener Library. That's the biggest library in the world, the most books of any library in the world. And that's where I go and study at night. That was the first lie I told her. I said, and Mom, here on the other side of the yard, that's Memorial Church. That's where I go to church on Sunday. I said, great. So I left and went to practice. She kept walking around. I met up afterwards for dinner, and I said, how was the rest of your day? She said, it was great. I went into the library. She's like, it's huge. It goes like 7 stories down into the ground. I said, yeah, it's great. There's a lot of quiet places to study. And then I went into Memorial Church, and I was like, oh yeah, isn't it great? I said, you should hear the music. They got great music. She says, yeah, that's not a Catholic church. I had no idea. I grew up in St. Paul, Minnesota in the 80s. I thought everybody was white, Irish, and Catholic. I really wasn't familiar. There were other faiths. And so you get busted by my mom. Not a great feeling. But she left, and I just kept doing my thing and justifying why I wasn't going to Mass. And then lo and behold, after college, I get drafted by the Minnesota Vikings, my hometown team. And now I've got a really good excuse not to go to Mass, right? I'm playing the Bears today. I can't possibly make it to church. And here we go. Everybody's telling me, gosh, you're doing great. You're playing for the Vikings. I mean, you're doing so good, man. You're such a good guy. And I was believing all the hype. And it got to a point in my career, I was starting center for the Minnesota Vikings, my team, my hometown team. I had signed the largest contract in the history of the NFL for a center. I mean, I had more worldly success than I ever imagined possible, and that was my focus. I mean, I even had a hamburger named after me in St. Paul. If you're a lineman, that's a big deal. That's kind of like the pinnacle, I had more than I ever thought was possible, but on the inside, I was dying, and I knew it. I was so unhappy. I was so unfulfilled, and God gives you what you need when you need it. He's never late, but he's rarely early. At that point, when I was kind of sensed like I was getting to a breaking point, I wasn't totally off the rails or anything, but I knew this wasn't long term. I met a woman who I became rather smitten with, and she became my wife. When I met her, she's like, "Hey, let's go to church." And I was like, "Yeah, why not? I mean, I'd have followed her anywhere. I'm not sure wherever you want to go." And went back to Mass one Sunday, and I was kind of like, it sort of felt like a little bit like St. Augustine. It's like, well, I've tried everything else, but why don't I try you, God? And I went back to Mass, and I was like, I know this a little bit. And then we got married, had our first child, and right before training camp, had our first child, and I witnessed that. And when I saw that happen, first of all, when I saw it happen, I said, well, I just witnessed a miracle. That was my thought. I just witnessed a miracle. I don't know, I must have been sick the day in biology class they showed how that happens, because it was just sort of like struck me like, it's a miracle. I know it's cliche, but it's true, right? I mean, fathers in here, when all your children, when that first child is born, everything changes. The whole way you look at life changes. It becomes a lot more real. And I said, okay, I got a child. 2 weeks later, I go to training camp, and I'm kind of thinking, I got to start figuring some stuff out. And so every team I played on in the NFL, we had a team chaplain, who was there, open door all the time, 24/7. In the NFL, there's a lot of Christians, not a lot of Catholics, unless you're a kicker. But the Catholics got the market cornered on all pro kickers. But there's all these Bible studies and fellowship or whatever they call it. And I was in training camp, and I've been roommates with a guy named Corey Withrow my whole time with the Vikings. You probably never heard of Corey Withrow. Great evangelical Protestant from Washington, and our whole time together, years. He would always get up. The night before games, you stay in a hotel. Even away game or home game, you stay in a hotel, and they bed check you and everything. They secure the floor so guys don't sneak out after hours and do stupid stuff, because they don't trust us, nor should they trust some of us. But and every Saturday night he would get up half hour before we had to go to meetings. He'd get up and he'd say, "Hey, you want to go to Bible study?" And the first time he did it, I'm thinking, no, this is my rookie year. I'm like, no, I'm good. It's like, I'm Catholic. We don't go to Bible study. Imagine my surprise when I found out later we actually put the Bible together. But that's how little I knew about my faith. But every Saturday he'd ask me, and I'd respectfully decline. And so first Saturday night he says, "Hey, you want to go to Bible study?" I said, "Yeah." And he's like, "Really?" And I was like, "Yeah." So we go to Bible study, walk in, and the team chaplain is surprised and happy, I think, that I showed up. He's like, "Man, great to see you." And so first Bible study of the year, you got all these new guys on the team, and we sat in kind of this big half circle, and he says, "Hey, first Bible study, like let's go around, and I want everybody to talk about the day that you accepted Jesus Christ as your personal Savior." Now, right, I've heard that language before, but as Catholics, we don't talk like that. And we're in this half circle, and I was sitting over here on the end. Thankfully, he started over here. And he starts going around the circle, and every single guy has the date and the year that he accepted Jesus Christ as his personal Savior. And so finally it gets to me, and I don't know, I was trying to think this whole time, what am I going to say? And so I just said, well, I'm Catholic. So I guess I accepted Jesus Christ as my personal Savior in my baptism. And I could kind of see the team chaplain sort of like, silly Catholics. That's what I said. But Bible study ended, and everybody gets up to walk out, and the team chaplain says, "Hey, Matt, really glad you're here." He goes, "How about we have breakfast Thursday morning?" And I said, "You know what, I'd like that." So every Thursday we would meet, and he was great. He was great, but come to find out that he used to be Catholic, no longer was, but he would ask me questions, and I would ask him questions, and he'd ask me a lot of questions about my Catholic faith, and I didn't have any of the answers. Like, I was shocked at how little I really knew about what it meant to be Catholic. And I said, "You know what?" I said, I identified with being Catholic. I got to figure out, like, what does that mean? Somehow it was important to me. Was I saying that just out of respect to my parents? Should I be like all these other guys? And so that's when I really dove back into my Catholic faith to figure out, what did it mean to be Catholic? I started reading some great books, and and all of us as cradle Catholics, we're given the gift of the faith as children, as babies, but at some point we have to claim that faith as our own. And so when I really started to dive deep as an adult, I started to fall in love with the Catholic faith and really appreciate the beauty and the breadth and the depth of our church. It's incredible. And I've learned it all. I know everything about the Catholic Church. Just kidding. Probably know this much, but it's awesome. But and so football really helped bring me back to my faith. And I think that at the beginning, there's a lot of metaphors for football and faith. So I'll tell you about football. I'll tell you kind of what it's like to be in the NFL. My first day in the NFL, right, drafted by the Minnesota Vikings, was like insane. And I'm getting ready to walk into the locker room, and the first day, it was April, it was our first mini camp, and I'm like, this is unbelievable. And I walk in the doors, and right as I open the door, there's 4 guys sitting right here, sitting at a locker, just sitting around talking. It was Chris Carter, who's in the Hall of Fame, Randall McDaniel, who's in the Hall of Fame, John Randall, who's in the Hall of Fame, and Jeff Christie, who's he's not in the Hall of Fame, but he was the starting center for the Minnesota Vikings, just making the Pro Bowl every year. So I walked in, I kind of got stunned for a second. I was like, I wonder what the policy is on asking for autographs. Because, like, 5 months before this, I mean, I was just a fan. I'm sitting in my dorm room, cheering the Vikings on, and then at the end of the season, throwing stuff at the TV.
Yeah.
That's how all Viking seasons end. So I was like, all right, don't ask for autographs. So just play it cool, So I was like, And I'm walking around, I'm like, well, where's my locker? I'd never been in the locker room before. And I'm walking to find my locker. It's got my name up above it. It's got helmet, shoulder pads, 10 pairs of shoes, like all these pairs of socks. The socks I was most excited about. I was still in college, and I was doing my line. I'm like, I'm taking these socks back to college. I need socks. And there was a playbook in there, and this is 1998, and we didn't have iPads and stuff. There was a playbook, which is like, I don't know if you guys have phone books, like the old, it's like, the NFL playbook, it's like 500 pages, it's like an old phone book you used to get on your doorstep. That's the offensive playbook. The defensive playbook, there's only 1 page. It's true, there's just a picture of the football and it says, go get it, boys. But I was like, hey, great, here's the book, I was like, I'm pretty sure I know how to study. I can pick this stuff up. And I went to that first meeting, and when I say 1998, if you're a Vikings fan, I can see some of you going like this. 1998, we had, at the time, we set the record for, I would say I didn't play hardly at all, but we set the record for most points scored in the history of the NFL. We had, Randall Cunningham and Robert Smith and Chris Carter. We had a rookie that year. His name was Randy Moss. We were good. The coaches knew we were good. So we go to that first meeting. Most of the guys in that room, they'd been there for years. They already knew the whole playbook. In the NFL, they don't care about rookies. It wasn't like they said, okay, open up to page 1, and this is how we huddle, and this is how we say down set huddle. No, they were just jumping in. They're like inventing new offense right there on the board, and I'm looking through the book like, where is this stuff? Went to that meeting, didn't learn hardly anything, but I wasn't concerned because I said to myself, this is what I want, I want to play for the Minnesota Vikings. I want to be rich and famous. I'm just going to go out here and make it happen. Because for a while, things had just kind of been working out for me. Things kind of been going my way, and I was just found a way I could just make it happen. And so went out on the field, and we're doing these drills, and everything's fine. And then we get into we start to scrimmage, offense against defense. And it was first offense, the starters against the first defense. And I remember kind of sitting back watching these guys, and I was thinking like, these guys are pretty good. A little bit different caliber athlete in the NFL than in the Ivy League. And I was just kind of in awe. And then they were like, coach turned to me, I was like, all right, get in there. And I run into the huddle. And now at this point, I'm kind of hyperventilating a little bit. I'm pretty nervous. And Brad Johnson, who was the starting quarterback for the Vikings at the time, steps into the huddle. And I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Like, wait till I tell my buddies I'm in the huddle with Brad Johnson. And he calls the play, and I'm thinking to myself, I just hope I know when he calls the play. I hope I know if it's a run or a pass. That's where I was at. Football, it's like a whole new language, And called the play, and I knew it was a pass. I was like, great. Don't have to turn to the guy next to me and ask him. Knew it was a pass, I break the huddle, come up to the line of scrimmage, and there's John Randall in front, okay? Now, John Randall at that time was the best defensive lineman in the NFL. I mean, he was unbelievable. And I'm thinking to myself, this is perfect. First play in the NFL, I'm gonna lock John Randall down. You know, and I'm gonna, because I'd only been there for half a day at this point, but everybody's already making fun of me. You know, they always make fun of the rookies. Back then, hazing was not only permitted, it was actually like encouraged, right? So they're riding me because I'm from St. Paul, because I got red hair, because I went to Harvard. I'm like, I'm gonna lock John Randall down, and everybody's gonna stop making fun of me. You know, I'm gonna prove it. I'm gonna be my welcome to the NFL moment. Show these guys that I'm wrong. So when you pass block a guy, what you do is you get down and you punch the D lineman in his chest to stop him, and then you latch on to him. Well, I wasn't in my mind, I'm not gonna punch John Randall in his chest. I'm gonna punch John Randall so hard, my hands are gonna go through his chest and come out his back, all right? I'm gonna kill John Randall on the field right now. Didn't want to do it, but felt like it had to be done. Right? So I get in my stance and I come out and I punched as hard as I could. But I closed my eyes because I was really scared. I was so scared. John Randall is crazy. I mean, he's a crazy man. Like, if you go watch videos of John Randall, he paints his face, he walks around, he barks like a dog. The guy ain't right. He ain't right. And I punched him. And I had my eyes closed. I didn't feel anything. And that's a bad feeling for an offensive lineman. And I opened my eyes, and John Randall was no longer here in front of me. He was like here, by me already. So this went from the greatest play in the history of the NFL for an offensive lineman to what we call lookout block. Look out! And John drops back, or Brad Johnson drops back in the pocket. John's like on him right away. And in practice, I mean, we're not even wearing pads at this point. In practice, you don't ever touch the quarterback. You know, if you won, John, just run by the quarterback. Coaches will see that you won, but there's all this other stuff going on. You know, receivers are running routes, and backs are going, we're practicing, right? Well, John, because it was April, and he was bored, and he was John, as he runs by Brad Johnson, instead of just going by him, he takes his big hand, which was connected to a big arm, and he just whacks Brad Johnson on the butt, like as hard as he can. And Brad's not expecting it. Brad's like this. If John hits him, and Brad's like, ah, like that. And it breaks his concentration, get hurt, he takes the ball, Brad just throws it down on the ground, walks like this. Brad's upset. Coaches are yelling and screaming at me. John's back there going, ha 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 ha. And I'm thinking to myself, thank God I got my degree. I can't do this. In one play, I went from like, I'm gonna do 10 years in the NFL to, I can't do this. Like, I just whiffed on John Randall. Like, I was embarrassed. And practice goes on and it doesn't get much better. And we're walking off the field, and my offensive line coach, Mike Tice, who's like 6'8", he looks like Frankenstein. He's from New York, so he's like not a nice guy. And he's like, how do you think it went out there? I was like, it was okay. He's like, no, it wasn't. It's like, well, you know, I did some good things. He's like, no, you didn't. He's like, look, you're not good enough. I was playing tackle. That's what I played in college. You're not good enough to play tackle in the NFL. That's where the really good guys play on the outside. And I was like, okay, I can't dispute that. He's like, you're not good enough to play guard either. I was like, I didn't even try guard. Okay, he's like, I think your only chance is, he goes, you gotta learn how to play center. He's like, you ever played center before? I was like, no. He's like, okay, well, he goes, back then we had 2 practices a day. He said, come out afternoon practice, be out here 5 minutes early, and we'll meet with the quarterbacks. We'll practice snapping the football. I'm like, okay. So I'm thinking to myself, you know, how's this gonna go? Like, I'm making a position change day 1 in the NFL, going against all these young guys. Like, how? Like, my chances of success are really, really low. And But I was like, you know what? I was like, I'll just do what they tell me. Up to that point, I was kind of focused on the results, you know? I just want to play a long time, make a lot of money. That was like gone. The only choice I had was to kind of just focus in on what the next thing they were telling me to do. So I'm out there like 20 minutes early, waiting for the quarterbacks. I'm kind of trying to pump myself up. Here the quarterbacks come 5 minutes before practice. A lot less enthused about what we're going to do. And for 5 minutes, we just practiced snapping the football. You know, you just bend over, put your hand on the ball. Quarterback puts his hands underneath you. Takes a little getting used to, okay? And we just practiced snapping the football. Now, chances are, like, you watch football, you've never, like, turned to your buddy and said, oh my gosh, did you see how the center just snapped the ball? That was perfect. How did you do that? No, the only time you ever notice the snap is when?
Fumble.
Yeah, when it's a fumble. And then you always blame the center. Admit it. You always say it's the center's fault. It can be the quarterback's fault too once in a while. It's not always the center's fault. I'm in therapy. I'm almost done. But that day and every single day for 15 years in the NFL, I went out 5 minutes early and practiced snapping the football. Why? Because it's that important. Right? You have the greatest play in the history of the world called. If the quarterback doesn't get the ball, it's not going to work. A few months after that, we're in training camp now where things are kind of ratcheted up a little bit. I was playing center and John was across from me now, and you know, John's beating me to the right, he's beating me to the left. I mean, I didn't block John Randall for 2 years, but I'm worried about John, and I put a couple snaps on the ground. And our head coach, Denny Green, and like when you fumble a snap, I mean, it's like, in football terms, it's like a mortal sin. I mean, that ball is the most valuable thing in the world. So coaches are yelling, screaming. Denny calls me over. He's like, Matt, calls me. So I got to run over there. I'm thinking, oh, this is Matt. Your number one job as a center is get the ball to the quarterback. He said, make sure he gets the ball. He said, I don't even care. I don't care if you don't block anybody. Just make sure he gets the ball. I said, Coach, I'm not blocking anybody now, so the least I can do is get the ball there. I did not say that. Okay, so, but it's that important. So every single day I'd be out 5 minutes early, we do that, and then the whistle blows. In football, it's all the same. Everybody does the same things, every team. Then practice officially starts, and everybody breaks into their position groups. You know, the quarterbacks, they're on the 50-yard line where all the nice grass is, and they're throwing routes to the receivers. And the linemen, we'd always get sent down into the corner where it was like rocks and pieces of sharded glass. And we get in these things called chutes, okay? These chutes. And think of a chute, it's kind of like it'd be kind of like this stage, a little bit higher, but you know, there's no sides, it's just a frame. And you get in the chute, and you have to stay low when you're in the chute, because if you rise up, you'll hit your head on one of the bars. But it teaches you to stay low. Because in line play, leverage is everything. They say low man wins. So training to stay low. I know if I was a quarterback, this would be a much more interesting talk. But I'm telling you the life of a lineman, okay? So you get in the chute, you stay low, and then we get these boards. They were 10 feet long and about 1.5 feet wide, and we called them boards. Okay. And we put those in the chute. You got to straddle the board. What the board trains you to do is to keep your feet apart, right? When you're on the field, you got your feet apart, you know, you got a chance. When you get your feet together, that's when you get knocked over on a football field. Trust me, that's what happens when you get your feet together on a football field. So every single day for 15 years, I'd go out 5 minutes early, I'd practice snapping the football, I'd get in the chutes, and I'd come out on the boards. I mean, I coach middle school football, to high schools, I've been to colleges. This is the NFL, right? The NFL. Every day, snap, shoots, boards. All those lower levels, they do the exact same thing. I don't think there's like a super NFL. I think the NFL is the top league, right? We do the same fundamentals there that the little kids are doing that I coach. Why? Because the fundamentals never change. Right? 100 years from now, centers will still be going out 5 minutes early and practicing the snap. Linemen will still be getting in the chutes because the fundamentals never change. What changes is the attention that we pay to them. Right? It's kind of natural for us to say, well, yeah, I already did that. What's next? It's like, no, this is it. This is all you got to do. Fast forward to my last day in the NFL. We played in the Super Bowl. Not with the Vikings. I don't want to confuse anybody. This is with the Ravens, okay? Everyone's like, why'd you leave Minnesota? I was like, well, I wanted to win a Super Bowl. That's the formula that you have to use. Yeah, Vikings fans don't think that's funny. Okay. Sorry, Father. Confession later. So, my last day in the NFL, the Super Bowl. Well, 2 weeks before that, we went to, we played the Patriots in the AFC Championship game, and we thumped them. I mean, we thumped them. I can still remember I saw Belichick and Brady walking off the field. They were so mad. They had this pout on their face. I mean, it gave me so much joy. I'm not afraid to tell you. We thumped the Patriots. We're going to play in the Super Bowl. Show up to work the next day. We got 2 weeks now. Everything else, you're always on this 7-day cycle in the NFL. Well, now we got 14 days, 13 days now to get ready for the Super Bowl. And the coach is like, hey guys, great job. Just so you know, the first play we're running in the Super Bowl is dot right 40 gut. Now, dot right 40 gut does not probably sound like a very complicated play. It's not. It's the most basic running play. It's an inside zone to the right. This is how complicated football is. Dot right 40 gut. Every lineman takes a step to his right, and you block the guy in your gap. The running back takes a step to the right, gets the football, and then he just finds the crease. Okay, this is a day one play. You install it the first day of training camp every single year. Everybody runs dot right 40 gut. My middle school team, we got like 5 plays. We run dot right 40 gut. Now, when the coach told us that, I was kind of thinking of 2 things. One, did you stay up all night thinking about this? Like this is the Super Bowl. You know, I was saying this like this is the Super Bowl, and we're going on with dot right 40 gut. I was a little shocked, but I was like, hey, coach is coach, players play, that's fine. So all week we practice, and we get in these team periods during practice when you come together and start running plays. Every time, first play, dot right 40 gut. And we run dot right 40 gut 1 million times up to that point. Dot right 40 gut. Practice all week in Baltimore, fly down to New Orleans, play in the Super Bowl, and practice all that week, dot right 40 gut. Finally we get to the game. It's like, finally we get to the game. Finally. National anthem, God bless America, fire, all this pomp and circumstance. Finally we kick the ball off. We run out onto the field. Our quarterback, Joe Flacco, gets in the huddle, and he says, guys, you know what the play is. It's on what? If he just said dot right 40 gut, I'd have probably thrown up in my mouth. And we went out there and we ran dot right 40 gut. And it was a pretty unspectacular play. I think we got like 2 yards. My guy may have made the tackle. But here's the point. If there had been a drone, over the field filming the game, and if you were to take away all of the fans in the stands and all the players on the sidelines and all the other players on the field except me, and you were to run that video, you know what you'd see me doing? You would have seen me snapping a football, in the chutes, coming out on the boards. People ask me all the time, what's it like to play in the Super Bowl? I say, I don't really know. Because in my mind, as a player, I was like, this is the Super Bowl. This is like the biggest stage, in the football world, it's the biggest stage. 100 million people are going to be watching. I couldn't wrap my head around that, nor did I really want to. Nor would that be helpful to me to worry about what's this going to look like for 100 million people. When I say you watch that video of me, I was snapping a football in the chutes coming up. I wasn't playing in the Super Bowl. In my mind, all I was doing was trying to execute the fundamentals that I'd spent every single day for 15 years trying to perfect. In my mind, that's where I was. That's what I was doing. And, I think we got this thing called life, right? I don't know what your life is like, but mine's there's a lot going on, right? And you get caught up and distracted and all these things. One of the great gifts about being Catholic is we've got the fundamentals, right? We don't have to try to figure it out. We don't have to run out there and rely on ourselves and say, well, I'm just going to go make it happen. All we got to do is we've got the Mass, we've got confession, we've got adoration, we've got the rosary, we've got the saints, we got the Hall of Fame of Catholics that we can look to, for inspiration. So helpful when you're a young player. They film everything in the NFL, and you're a young player and you're trying to figure it out. You watch the film and you watch these veterans guys. You watch Randall McDaniel do it, first ballot Hall of Famer. You put it on the film and the coach would say, young guys, you see that? That's what it's supposed to look like. It's helpful to have that. It's helpful to have something to aspire to see it. But we've got all these fundamentals at our disposal as Catholics. It's not on us, We just got to show up. What makes you a great football player, these guys, we're obsessed. Our society is obsessed with highlights. We got the top 10 plays every day. You can see them. We love these one-handed catches, and that's great. But that ain't how you get to the Hall of Fame in football. You get to the Hall of Fame in football, you're just consistent. You play consistently at a high level, over and over and over and over again. That's all we have to do as Catholics. We just got to commit to the fundamentals. Commit to the process and do it over and over and over and over again. One of the great blessings of our faith is, this speaks to me in volumes. It takes no talent to be Catholic. I mean, what a gift, right? What an amazing thing. All we really got to do is show up and grind. That's what we do. That's what we do as Catholics. Fast forward to the end of that Super Bowl. So the Super Bowl I played in was the one where the lights went out. You remember that? So we were up 28-6 on the 49ers. It was unbelievable. I wasn't letting myself go there, but I'm thinking to myself, is this gonna be one of those games where like fourth quarter we're like partying on the sidelines? Like, we could do no wrong. And then the lights went out. Okay? Which never happens. And then the lights came back on. And all of a sudden, it was a totally different ballgame. All of a sudden, we went 3 and out. They went down and scored. We fumbled. They went down and scored. And now it's like, oh man, we're human beings too. We're kind of sitting on the sidelines. I'm thinking to myself, that clock needs to run. Because sooner or later, it felt like they were going to catch up. And we're up 5. They got the ball down here. There's 5 minutes left in the game. They drive all the way down the field, and they got first and goal on the 5-yard line. They got to score a touchdown. First down, they don't get it. Second down, they don't get it. Third down, they don't get it. So now it's 4th and goal. And I'm sitting on the sidelines, and I'm saying, okay, the game is coming down to this one play right here. Right here. And I can't do anything about it. I can't do anything about it. I'm like, this is messed up. Because I'm a Vikings fan. I've seen how this story ends. I'm thinking, this is so messed up, God. Like, and Drake said something. Everybody was talking to God at that point. Even guys, I think a lot of guys accepted Jesus Christ as their personal Savior on our team right then and there. There's a lot of praying going on. And then, your mind, it can work so fast. You can play out so many things. This was the ball game. This one play was going to decide the outcome of this game. I'm thinking, I pretty much knew this was my last game. And I'm thinking, gosh, this is messed up. If we lose this game, we'll have blown the biggest lead in the history of a Super Bowl, and I'm going to end my career with this loss, and the world's going to say I'm a failure. I mean, pretty much. Oh, it's great you played that, but you didn't win a Super Bowl. We love that. We love that. You got to win the Super Bowl. And I'm thinking, if we lose this game, does that mean I'm a failure? Does that mean I'm less than what I am? And in my mind, I just kind of had this moment of peace. I said, that doesn't mean anything. I said, success and my identity is no longer built on being a football player or whether to win a Super Bowl. One of the other greatest things about our faith is it tells us who we are. We're sons of God. That's it. That's more than enough. It doesn't really matter. This does not define me. and I was totally at peace, for the most part.
Mhm.
Fourth down, the football coaches, fourth down, Super Bowl's on the line, what play do they call? They just call a goal line fade. You know, quarterback catches the ball, just throws it up into the corner, and the wide receiver and the DB fight over it. You know, it's called the 50-50 ball. 50% chance they get it, 50% chance we get it. Well, he throws it up into the corner, and a lot of 49ers fans think it should have been called pass interference. Personally, I think it was a great no call. and we won the game. And don't get me wrong, that was great. That was a great moment to be able to share with my family and friends on the field afterwards. But I assure you, you know, for me, when I look back on my football career, the greatest thing football did for me was God used it to bring me back to Him and to bring me back to His church, to His Catholic faith. People say, "Where's your Super Bowl ring?" I can't 100% tell you with confidence where my Super Bowl ring is. I know it's in my house somewhere. I know there's like 3 spots, depending where my kids put it. But it's really not that important. It's really not that important. And I look back at that experience, and we want people like, what's it like to win the Super Bowl? And I remember when we won it, it was a great I was happy that my family was there, and we all got to share in that joy, that fun. But I remember thinking, like, this is it. Like, I don't know. I was a little bit sort of like, I don't want to say anticlimactic, but that's when I realized that it wasn't about the destination. It was about that 15-year journey to get there. And I also realized that, man, there's no way I could have played in the NFL that long without teammates. And that's why I'm so, when I say I'm glad to be here, I mean, God did not make us to go it alone. He didn't make us. We're not built for that. We're built for community, right? He sent out the disciples 2 by 2. I mean, this is what we're built for. Maybe this is the 100th event you've been to with other guys. Maybe it's your first. But life's a team game. And I tell you, I'm fortunate enough to join a men's group 8 years ago. Changed my life. I have no idea how anybody gets through this life without teammates, without a men's group. That's what we were built for. So being Catholic, man, it's just about showing up. It's about doing those fundamentals over and over and over and over again. And being a teammate. There really is no mystery. You know, there really is no mystery on how to get to the destination that we want to get to. How to be who we all aspire to be. I know everybody in here aspires to be a great man, a great husband, a great father. You know, the Catholic Church tells us not only what that actually really means. The world will tell you that's not right. Our church tells us what that actually really means, and it gives you the playbook to get there. Right? So we just got to show up. Thank you very much.